The will is quite clear, Marcus said, his expensive suit barely containing his smug satisfaction. Dad left everything to me. The properties, the investment portfolio, all of it. He paused, savoring the moment. Well, almost everything. You get Mom's old flower shop. Seems fitting. I sat quietly in our family lawyer's office, watching my brother's performance. Mr. Davidson, who'd served as our father's attorney for 30 years, couldn't quite meet my eyes as he confirmed the will's contents. The same will that had mysteriously changed 3 weeks before Dad's death, when he was heavily medicated and barely coherent. There must be some mistake, I said softly, though I already knew there wasn't. Marcus had played this game perfectly, just like he'd played everything else in his life. Dad always said he'd split everything equally. Marcus's laugh echoed off the mahogany panels. Come on, sis. Did you really think he'd trust his real estate empire to someone who wastes time running a tiny flower shop? I'm the one with the business degree, the connections, the vision. What he didn't know, what none of them knew, was that Mom's tiny flower shop had been my cover for years. While Marcus had been flaunting his Harvard MBA and collecting sports cars, I'd been quietly building something of my own. Shadow Peak Investments, my real estate investment firm, had assets that would make even Marcus's newly acquired fortune look modest. The flower shop will need to be relocated, Marcus continued, examining his manicured nails. I'm selling that building. Prime location, you know. Already have buyers interested. Mr. Davidson cleared his throat uncomfortably. Actually, Marcus, that property isn't part of the estate. It was transferred to your sister's ownership 5 years ago. My brother's smile faltered slightly. What? Mom's last gift, I explained, thinking of her final days when she'd made me promise to keep building, keep growing, but always in the shadows. The shop and the building it's in are mine. Have been for years. Whatever, Marcus waved dismissively. One small building doesn't matter. I've got bigger plans. Dad's properties are just the beginning. I'm going to transform this city. My phone buzzed, a message from Sarah, my chief investment officer. Windermere Heights deal closed. We now control all adjacent properties to Marcus's inherited portfolio. I typed back, proceed with phase 2. Something important? Marcus smirked, noticing my texting. Another flower delivery perhaps? Just business, I replied mildly. You're not the only one with plans, brother. Please, he scoffed. Your idea of business is arranging roses and selling Valentine's Day specials. This, he patted the portfolio of properties he'd just inherited, is real business. Dad knew that. It's why he changed the will. Changed the will. More like manipulated our dying father when he could barely recognize his own children. But Marcus had always been good at manipulation. It was his one true talent. You should be grateful, he continued, standing to leave. Running Dad's empire takes real skill. You can stick to your little shop, maybe expand to selling greeting cards or whatever. Leave the real estate to those who understand it. If he only knew about the deals I'd closed last week. The properties I'd acquired. The networks I'd built while he was busy buying designer suits and dating socialites. One last thing, Marcus paused at the door. I'm doubling your rent. Market rates, you understand. Business is business. I smiled, thinking of the documents waiting on my desk back at Shadow Peak's real office. The one hidden behind the flower shop's modest storefront. Of course. Business is business. After he left, Mr. Davidson finally met my eyes. I'm so sorry, he began. Your father's original will was changed 3 weeks before his death. I finished for him. When he was on heavy medication. When Marcus had power of attorney. I know. We could contest it, the lawyer suggested. There might be grounds. I shook my head, standing to leave. No need. Marcus can have Dad's empire. I've built my own. Outside, the city skyline sparkled in the late afternoon sun. My phone buzzed again, another message from Sarah. Riverfront acquisition complete. All 5 properties secured before Marcus's team could even make an offer. I smiled, thinking of my brother's face when he discovered he'd been outbid. He didn't know it yet, but every property he'd tried to buy in the next 6 months would somehow slip through his fingers. Purchased by mysterious shell companies at the last minute. Mom had taught me well before she died. Let them underestimate you, she'd said. Let them think you're just a simple flower shop owner. Build your empire in the shadows, and when the time is right, show them what real power looks like. Looking up at the buildings that now belonged to my brother, I thought about how temporary his triumph would be. He had Dad's properties, yes. But I had something better. A plan that would turn his victory into the beginning of his downfall. The next 3 months turned Marcus's real estate empire into a masterclass in frustration. Every property he targeted, every deal he attempted somehow slipped through his fingers at the last moment. It happened again. His voice boomed through my flower shop one morning. He stormed past the fresh lilies and orchids, his Italian leather shoes squeaking on the recently mopped floor. The Carlton Street development. Someone outbid me by millions. I carefully continued arranging a bouquet of roses. How unfortunate. Coffee. I don't want coffee. He ran his hands through his perfectly styled hair. This is the 8th deal I've lost. 8 prime properties, all snatched away by different investment groups. Aurora Investments, Mountain Ridge Capital, Sunset Holdings. I can't trace any of them. Of course he couldn't. Each was a carefully constructed shell company under Shadow Peak's umbrella, all leading back to the modest flower shop he was currently pacing through. Maybe you're not offering enough, I suggested mildly, adding a sprig of baby's breath to the arrangement. Not offering enough? He laughed bitterly. I'm offering way above market value. It's like someone's deliberately blocking me, but that's impossible. Nobody has that kind of resources. My phone buzzed. Sarah again. Waterfront Plaza acquisition complete. All paperwork filed under Blue Harbor LLC. Sounds stressful, I sympathized, typing back a quick confirmation. Maybe you should start smaller? Focus on managing Dad's existing properties. Marcus's face darkened. Dad's properties. Funny you should mention those. The tenants are becoming difficult. Demanding renovations, threatening to leave. And the banks. He trailed off, then shook his head. Never mind. You wouldn't understand. But I did understand. I understood that the tenant associations in his buildings had recently received anonymous information about their rights. That several of his major commercial tenants had been quietly approached by other properties, my properties, with better offers. That the banks were becoming concerned about his aggressive expansion attempts and mounting failures. The flower shop seems stable enough, he said, looking around with barely concealed disdain. Maybe I should have kept it simple like you. Just. His phone buzzed and his face went pale. Oh. No. Problem. The Riverside Tower deal just fell through. Some company called Shadow Peak Investments bought it right from under me. Paid cash. He kicked a display stand, sending rose petals floating to the floor. Who are these people? I bent to pick up the scattered flowers. Careful with the merchandise, brother. Some of us have to work for a living. Work? You call this work? He gestured around the shop. I'm trying to build something significant here, something worthy of Dad's legacy, and I'm being blocked at every turn. Just then his assistant rushed in, looking flustered. Mr. Thompson, sir. There's a situation with the Hamilton building tenants. They're all threatening to leave. Something about a class action lawsuit over maintenance violations. Marcus's face went from pale to red. What violations? That building was fine 3 months ago. The violations your father had been covering up, I said quietly. The ones you would have known about if you'd actually spent time learning the business instead of just waiting to inherit it. He spun to face me. What did you say? Nothing. Just thinking out loud about proper property management. His phone buzzed again. And again. His assistant was practically jumping with anxiety. Sir, the bank is calling about the loan covenants. And the Morton Street property just went under contract too. Let me guess, Marcus cut her off. Another mysterious buyer. She nodded miserably. Mountain Vista Partners. All cash offer, no contingencies. I hid my smile behind a particularly large sunflower arrangement. Mountain Vista Partners, one of my newer shell companies, named after Mom's favorite hiking spot. This is insane, Marcus muttered, more to himself than anyone else. It's like someone's systematically blocking every move I make. But who? Who has that kind of money and influence? Perhaps, I suggested, you should focus less on expansion and more on maintaining what you have. Dad's properties need attention. He laughed harshly. Maintenance advice from a florist? Please. I just need to think bigger. Make bigger offers. Use more leverage. The banks are already concerned about your leverage, his assistant interjected, then immediately looked like she wished she hadn't spoken. The banks, Marcus snarled, don't understand my vision. Once I acquire enough properties, once I build enough scale, everything will fall into place. I watched him storm out, his assistant scurrying behind him with a stack of increasingly worrying reports. The rose petals he'd scattered still lay on the floor, a fitting metaphor for how he treated everything he touched. My phone buzzed one more time. A message from our old family lawyer, Mr. Davidson. Marcus just tried to take out another loan using his inherited properties as collateral. The banks are getting nervous. Are you sure about this plan? I typed back, absolutely. Let him keep digging. The hole's almost deep enough. The collapse came faster than even I had anticipated. 6 months after Marcus inherited Dad's empire, it all came crashing down in a spectacular display of hubris and overreach. I watched from my real office, the penthouse suite above the flower shop, as the financial news channels exploded with headlines. Thompson Real Estate Empire in Crisis. Marcus Thompson's aggressive expansion strategy backfires. Shadow Peak Investments emerges as city's largest property holder. Sarah entered with our latest acquisition reports. The banks are calling in his loans. All of them. His over-leveraging finally caught up with him. And the tenants? I asked, though I already knew the answer. 70% have signed pre-leases with our properties. The class action lawsuit over the maintenance violations has been filed. His insurance won't cover it because of the pre-existing conditions he ignored. My phone lit up with Marcus's name for the 20th time that morning. This time I answered. You, he said, his voice hoarse. It was you all along, wasn't it? I looked out over the city, my city now. Took you long enough to figure it out. But, the flower shop, you're just what, Marcus? Just the sister you underestimated? Just the one you thought wouldn't understand real business? I turned to face the wall of screens showing my real estate portfolio, now the largest in the city. Mom didn't just leave me a flower shop. She left me her business sense, her patience, and most importantly, her understanding of how to build something lasting. This is impossible, he whispered. Shadow Peak, Mountain Vista, Aurora Investments, they're all you? Every single one. While you were busy showing off your Harvard MBA, I was quietly building an empire that would make Dad's look small. Every property you tried to buy, every deal you pursued, I was always one step ahead. But the resources needed, the capital. Remember all those small tech companies Mom invested in before she died? The ones you laughed at? Some of them went public. Very successfully. I smiled, remembering Mom's foresight. She taught me to invest in people with vision, not just property. Unlike you, who only saw buildings as status symbols. The silence on the other end was deafening. The banks are calling, he finally said, his voice small. They want their money. The tenants are leaving. The maintenance lawsuits. Yes, about those maintenance issues, I interrupted. Did you ever actually read the inspection reports Dad kept in his office? The ones detailing all the problems he was planning to fix before you decided to divert those funds into your expansion plans. Another long silence. I can't lose everything, he whispered. There must be something. Actually, there is, I said, picking up a folder from my desk. Shadow Peak is prepared to make an offer for all of Dad's original properties. Fair market value, despite the issues you've created. The contracts are ready whenever you are. You're buying me out? After everything? No, Marcus. I'm saving Dad's legacy from your mismanagement. The buildings he spent his life acquiring deserve better than being used as collateral for your failed empire building. I could hear him breathing heavily on the other end. And what about me? The flower shop is hiring, I said sweetly. We need someone to make deliveries. Unless you think that's beneath a Harvard MBA. The line went dead. Over the next few weeks, everything fell into place. Marcus, faced with no other options, sold Dad's properties to Shadow Peak. The banks, relieved to have a stable buyer, approved the transfers. The tenants' lawsuit was settled, with Shadow Peak committing to immediate repairs and upgrades. I kept the flower shop open, though now it served as more of a reminder than a cover. Every morning I'd spend an hour there before heading up to my real office, arranging flowers and chatting with customers. Kept me grounded, reminded me of Mom's lessons about building something real, something lasting. Marcus? He eventually took a mid-level position with a small property management firm in another city. His social media went quiet. His sports cars disappeared. Sometimes he'd send awkward holiday cards, always addressed to the flower shop. 1 year later, I hosted a reception in the penthouse office. The city's business leaders gathered to celebrate Shadow Peak's latest achievement, the completion of a major downtown revitalization project. The kind of project Dad had always dreamed of but never had the resources to accomplish. In the corner, Mom's portrait watched over the proceedings. Next to it, I'd hung a simple frame containing the deed to her flower shop, the first property I'd ever owned, the foundation of everything that followed. Sarah appeared at my elbow. The Thompson building renovations are complete. The tenants are thrilled. And, she smiled, your brother's latest job application just came across my desk. I looked out at the city skyline, my buildings now mixed with Dad's original properties, all under the Shadow Peak banner. Send him an offer, I said finally. Entry level. In the maintenance department. Are you sure? I thought about all the lessons Marcus still needed to learn. About building something real. About respecting the foundations others built. About the difference between inheriting success and earning it. Yes, I smiled. After all, he needs to start somewhere. Just like I did. Because in the end it was never about revenge. It was about proving that true success isn't inherited, it's built, one careful step at a time, even if those steps start in a small flower shop that everyone else overlooked. And sometimes the sweetest victory isn't in watching your enemies fall. It's in giving them a chance to learn the lessons they should have learned all along. Even if those lessons come with a name tag and a maintenance uniform.